Scott Wheeler of The Athletic recently released his top 50 drafted prospect rankings, and 5 Blackhawks cracked the list. I'll talk about where each of them wound up and also get into a Central Division preview of the Winnipeg Jets. All that and plenty more right here on Locked On Blackhawks.
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everyone? Welcome on in to another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today is Wednesday, July 19th. I'm your host, Jack Bushman. As always, do me a favor, go and follow at Jack Bushman2 on Twitter, or you could also go and follow my Strictly Blackhawks account at Talkin' Hockey for all the latest Blackhawks news and updates. And just a quick reminder to go and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. It only takes 2 seconds. It won't cost you anything. It really does help me out tremendously. And also that way, you can get the latest episode as soon as it becomes available each and every day. I also got to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon for up to $200 in bonus bets. All right, good afternoon, everyone. As always, thank you all for joining me on another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, your one-stop shop for all things Chicago Blackhawks. And thank you all for making the show your very first listen here to start off your day. And to kick things off on the show here this afternoon, I wanted to get into a top 50 drafted prospect ranking that was recently released earlier this week by none other than Scott Wheeler of The Athletic. And in that top 50, folks, we saw 5 Blackhawks prospects, the most of any team in the entire NHL right now, and 4 of them wound up making their way inside the top 30. So I think it's very safe to say at this point in time, Blackhawks fans, after the addition of Connor Bedard with the first overall pick, along with the Hawks' entire 2023 draft class, I firmly believe that they have the best prospect pool in the entire NHL. And another quick shout out here to general manager Kyle Davidson, again, for just doing a wonderful job since he stepped in as general manager. It is certainly looking brighter down the tunnel for the Blackhawks than it has in quite some time. They still have a slew of draft picks in the next couple of years, a remarkably deep prospect pool. A nice reminder, once again, that brighter days are to come for this historic franchise. But I did want to talk about this top 50 list that Scott Wheeler released here recently. I was very interested to see, of course, who wound up slotting where, who wound up ahead of who, and I'm sure all of you out there are very curious as well. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. One thing I will say, though, real quick, of course, I think this kind of goes without saying, but this is just Scott Wheeler, one person's top 50 ranking. Of course, he's very respected, works for The Athletic, does a bunch of these lists, is well in tune with all the prospects across the world in the game of hockey. He does a fantastic job, but there's a lot of varying opinions on these players. This is just one perspective in particular, but I will say I do think Scott Wheeler does a very good job with the majority of his work and obviously knows these prospects a whole lot better than I do. So getting right into it, not much of a surprise here, coming in at number 1, folks. I'm sure you all knew by the thumbnail on today's YouTube video, that is recently turned 18-year-old phenom Connor Bedard, the top overall selection in the 2023 NHL draft. And, oh, man, I was looking at the Blackhawks Cap Friendly earlier today, Blackhawks fans, and what a smile that peeked up on my face as soon as I saw Connor Bedard's name listed under active forward, since, of course, he's now officially signed his entry-level contract. I broke that down recently right here on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, where I discussed all of his potential performance bonuses that could lead to him making a whole heck of a lot more than the $950,000 AAV that he's given over these next 3 years. Go and check that out if you haven't done so already on the YouTube channel. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button while you're there. It really does go a long way. But yeah, of course, Bedard is the top overall prospect, a generational talent. skill set that we really haven't seen like any other 17-year-old in the history of the NHL. I mean, just a remarkable skill set. And reading kind of what Wheeler was talking about, I think just kind of cements what I believe about Connor Bedard stepping into the NHL next year. Wheeler wrote about how he firmly believes that not just of any of these prospects in the list, no, but if he were to put Connor Bedard on the ice along with the best shooters in the NHL at this point in time, they wouldn't be able to rip it the way he does. He just has that special release, that special pop. And I think that shot of his really is going to be one of the best in the NHL right from game one. And that's going to be his best asset, at least this rookie season, given the talent that the Blackhawks have around him at this point in time. I really think he's going to be a 35 goal scorer, maybe even a 40 goal scorer next year for the Blackhawks. I expect him to lead the team in that category. Connor Bedard comes in at number 1 on Scott Wheeler's list. I'm just going to buzz through his ranking here, 1 through, I'm going to go through number 30, I believe here, just so you all out there know. If you're not subscribed to The Athletic, you can see how Scott Wheeler broke down all of these prospects, not just the Blackhawks ones. Coming in at number 2, he had Matvei Michkov, who of course slid all the way down to the Philadelphia Flyers at number 7 in the 2023 NHL draft. I had him ranked as the 4th best prospect, or I actually had him ranked as the 3rd best prospect ahead of Leo Carlsson. But projected him to go 4th overall. Obviously slid further than that. Could be a heck of a steal for the Philadelphia Flyers because that kid's skill set is undeniable. At number 3, he has Adam Fantilli, who fell right into the hands of the Columbus Blue Jackets with the 3rd overall selection. That was a result of Leo Carlsson, who Wheeler has at number 4, going 2nd overall to the Anaheim Ducks. A bit of a shocker there. Will Smith then checks in at number 5. And this is just a reminder, folks, of how deep the 2023 NHL draft was. Each of the top 5 prospects right now across the NHL come from the 2023 NHL draft. It was that deep, and you'll see a slew of names pop up here as we go down the top 30. The first one not from the 2023 NHL draft is Logan Cooley at number 6. After a really strong freshman season with the University of Minnesota Golden Gophers, the Coyotes prospect cracks the top 10. Luke Hughes comes in at number 7, joined the New Jersey Devils for the postseason after wrapping up his year with the University of Michigan. And he's also joined by Simon Nemec, who comes in at number 8 for Wheeler's list. A very bright future on the back end for the New Jersey Devils. They could be a very scary team for quite a while. Another defenseman. This is actually a slew of defensemen going here from number 7 to number 11. Coming in at number 9 here is David Jiricek, defenseman for the Columbus Blue Jackets. A deep prospect pool for the Jackets as well. Brant Clark comes in at number 10, a little bit of a forgotten man because he's a few years removed from his draft. Still a very high-end defenseman prospect for the Los Angeles Kings that should be a full-time NHLer for the first time in his career this season. Simone Edvinsson, big left-handed defenseman for the Detroit Red Wings, comes in at number 11. Zach Benson from the Winnipeg Ice, who slid all the way down to the Buffalo Sabres with the 13th overall pick, comes in at number 12. Cutter Gauthier for the Philadelphia Flyers is 13. Shane Wright, the top overall pick in the 2022 NHL draft for the Seattle Kraken, comes in, not the top over, excuse me. Number 14, he slid. Yuri Slavkovsky was the top overall selection, projected to be the top overall selection. Got a little ahead of myself there. I apologize. Gabe Perreault comes in at number 15 on Scott Wheeler's list. You might think that sounds funny because Perreault went 23rd overall in this past year's draft to the New York Rangers. I thought that was an absolute steal. Had Oliver Moore not been on the board for the Blackhawks, Gabe Perreault, in my mind, was the no-doubter pick for them. He comes in at number 15, might be higher on Wheeler's list than a lot of other folks. Dalibor Dvorsky, the 10th overall selection in this year's draft, is at number 16 for the St. Louis Blues. And at number 17, we get our next Blackhawks prospect in Oliver Moore, baby. And I think it is interesting that Oliver Moore is ranked ahead of Kevin Korchinski here. I really am not familiar enough yet with Moore's game. I'd like to see him on ice in person. Obviously didn't get to as a result of development camp being moved off ice for the first time this year, which was a bit unfortunate. But Wheeler obviously spoke about the high-end skating ability that Oliver Moore possesses, has been deemed the best skater in this past year's draft class, can absolutely fly up and down the ice, loves to make an impact at all areas. Wheeler really spoke about how he thought he was the one that drove a lot of the offense for the development team's second line because he didn't play with Will Smith, Ryan Leonard, or Gabe Perreault on that top line. He was the one really carrying the mail for that second line, but obviously a guy that has a very high ceiling because of the way he skates. He's gotten stronger over the last year, has a sneaky good shot, and really looks like if you put him in the system as a potential second line center of the future, where he doesn't have to focus on offense and can kind of just be the roamer that he is out there and make an impact in all three zones behind Connor Bedard, sets up the Blackhawks very well down the middle moving forward. Coming in after Oliver Moore at number 17, at 18 was Matthew Wood, first-round pick for the Nashville Predators, who I'm super high on. Ryan Leonard, interestingly enough, drops down to 19 for Scott Wheeler, a top 10 pick in this year's draft of the Washington Capitals. I had him ranked as the sixth best prospect, so I probably have him a little higher than he does. David Reinbacher, the fifth overall pick for the Montreal Canadiens, comes in at number 20. Logan Stankoven of the Dallas Stars comes in at 21. And then at 22, we have another Blackhawks prospect, but their first defenseman in Kevin Korchinski, baby. The long, lengthy, smooth skater that can kind of just glide with ease up and down the ice. Always seems to be making his way up a rush into transition, can help his team out. A quarterback of the power play unit, is starting to get a little bit stronger and fill out into his form, but another guy who just has such a high ceiling because of his elite skating ability. And seeing it in person, it truly is on another level. He looked really solid in the preseason for the Blackhawks this past year, was obviously a huge part of the Seattle Thunderbirds' success as WHL champions. Could very well be in the Blackhawks opening night lineup. It's going to be super intriguing to see what happens with Kevin Korchinski throughout training camp. He comes in at number 22. At number 23 comes Jimmy Snuggerud of the St. Louis Blues. Matt Savoy, not Samuel Savoy of the Buffalo Sabres, comes in at 24, along with Yuri Kulich, comes in at 25. I'm not going to lie. I know this guy was a top 10 pick. I have no clue still how to pronounce his last name from a couple of years ago for the Anaheim Ducks. Pavel Mintyukov, I believe it is, a defenseman for Anaheim. He's 26. Lane Hudson of the Montreal Canadiens comes in at 27. Owen Zellweger of the Anaheim Ducks comes in at 28. And then another Blackhawks prospect, their fourth inside the top 30, folks. Lucas Reichel comes in at number 29, should be an NHLer next season. I see no world in which he shouldn't be. His confidence grew and grew and grew during his final stint, and I believe had 11 points or 13 points in his final 17 NHL games. Looked so sharp, the confidence, the ability to make heads-up plays in transition, smooth skating, swift stick handling, and starting to shoot the puck a little bit more and adding some more weapons to his game and just becoming more of an all-around factor. Really excited to see Lucas Reichel and Connor Bedard leading the charge for the Blackhawks forward group in the future. And then the last one I'm going to mention in the top 30 is Marco Rossi of the Minnesota Wild, the last Blackhawks prospect that cracked this top 50 list. Coming in at number 50 is none other than Frank the Tank Nazar, the 13th overall selection in the 2022 NHL draft. Unfortunately, had his freshman season cut short with the University of Michigan Wolverines. We're hoping that he can return to the peak level that he was at going into his freshman year, because watching him at development camp last summer, oh my gosh, this dude is the Energizer Bunny. He buzzes up and down the ice for being 5'9". He's not scared of going into the dirty areas, not scared of any shot. He plays physical, has a really dynamic offensive game, can be a creative playmaker, and also has the goal scoring ability to bury one past a netminder from the circles. Plays a 200-foot game, a really strong compete level. Another guy with just outstanding skating ability. Down the middle, the Blackhawks are going to be so set on skating moving forward with Connor Bedard, Oliver Moore, and Frank Nazar, if they all wind up playing the center position at the next level. Hopefully Frank gets right and has a big-time sophomore campaign with the Wolverines. If that's the case, we could very well wind up seeing him make the jump to the professional level following the conclusion of the year. All right, folks, coming up in just a moment, I'll continue on with the prospect talk, and I'll break down where you can watch every single one of these Blackhawks prospects next season. But first, I need to talk to you all about FanDuel. Take your first swing at betting on Major League Baseball at FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. It's $200 you can spend betting everything from the money line to the over-under to who you think is going to first hit the home run, all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on the MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, an official partner of Major League Baseball. All right, we're back here on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure to go and smash the like button if you're still tuned in to this point of today's episode, and make sure that you're subscribed to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube. If you're not, what are you doing? I got so much good stuff planned throughout the Blackhawks offseason. And also, if you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, along with following Locked On Blackhawks on Instagram, you'll have a chance to win some cool free Blackhawk stuff with a giveaway that I'm currently having right here on the show. Just subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow Locked On Blackhawks on Instagram, and then also DM Locked On Blackhawks on Instagram, a quick screenshot that proves that you're subscribed to the channel, and you'll have a chance to be the lucky winner. I recently just posted some pictures of all the things that are involved in the giveaway. I'm going to let this run for a couple more weeks here, folks, as I continue to try and grow the channel. Please go and hit that subscribe button. It's not too late. Go and join the giveaway right now, and you could be the lucky winner of some cool free Blackhawks stuff. All right, segment 2. Since we're on the topic of Blackhawks prospects, I figured I'd be sure to talk about where you can catch each and every Blackhawks prospect in the pipeline this upcoming season. And I know there are Blackhawks fans. The fandom for Blackhawks Nation spreads wide across the planet, wide across North America, all continents, all countries. So maybe there's an opportunity for you to go see one of these Blackhawks prospects in person near you, or maybe you're able to tune in or read or catch up with all of these prospects because they're local in your area. And I personally always think one of the funnest things about covering the show is keeping up with these prospects in the future of the Chicago Blackhawks. I really love diving into these guys and seeing how they're doing throughout their season. So you can catch all of these players playing for these respected junior teams, collegiate programs overseas. I'm going to be breaking it all down for you right now. So I'm going to be sorting it out a little bit by draft class just to kind of flow through everything easier. But of course, the first overall selection in the 2023 NHL draft, Connor Bedard, the top overall prospect in the entire NHL. Word to basically everyone who knows hockey, and Scott Wheeler. He's, of course, going to be playing for the Chicago Blackhawks this upcoming season. I know he's a humble kid, says he still has to make the team out of camp. There's no guarantee. He's going to be playing for the Blackhawks on opening night against Sidney Crosby and the Pittsburgh Penguins. I guarantee it. There's no way this kid's going back to Regina. Don't even think about it. No worries whatsoever, Blackhawks fans. As for Oliver Moore, the Hawks' second first-round selection this past year, he's going to be playing for the University of Minnesota Golden Gophers, and he's also going to be rooming with fellow Blackhawks prospect Sam Renzel, which just makes my heart so warm and happy. Adam Gajan, the first goaltender taken off the board. It looked like for a second we thought he was going to be playing with the University of Minnesota Duluth this upcoming year, but he's actually going to be returning to the United States Hockey League and playing for the Green Bay Gamblers, kind of similar to what we saw with Sam Renzel. Following the conclusion of this season, then Gajan will go and play collegiate hockey with the Bulldogs, a program us Blackhawks fans are very familiar with at this point. Roman Kantsarov, another second-round pick for the Blackhawks in this year's draft. It's going to be interesting to see where he winds up playing, because while he's played over in Russia these last couple of years, it's strictly been at the MHL level, which isn't really considered to be the best minor league out there. It's not nearly as competitive, or best junior league, excuse me. Not nearly as competitive as junior hockey is in Canada. And they haven't really shown. He signed with Metallurg. hold me to that pronunciation. Not sure on that one, but I know he is signed with a KHL club through the end of next season. But this past year, he played in one KHL game, but only got 2 minutes of ice time. So I'm not sure if they're wanting to use Kanserov at the KHL level this upcoming season, or if they're going to leave him in the NHL. Or did I say the NHL or the MHL? I don't even know. Not sure exactly what level he's going to be playing at, but he is still under contract in Russia. That's why he couldn't attend Blackhawks development camp a couple of years ago. But hopefully, fingers crossed, always with the Russians, he'll be making the jump overseas after the 2023-2024 campaign. A lot of skill there for Roman Kanserov. Some folks had him as a first-round pick. Martin Misiak was actually the first overall selection in the CHL import draft for the Erie Otters after coming over to North America and joining the Youngstown Phantoms en route to a Clark Cup championship for the USHL this past season. Should be playing for Erie. Nick Lardis, who looks like he could be a steal of a third-round pick, elite goal-scoring ability. He played for the Hamilton Bulldogs and then got traded to, oh my gosh, this is absolutely disappointing me that I can't think of it off the top of my head. I do know that he's going to be playing for the Brantford Bulldogs of the Ontario Hockey League this past season. Did he play for the Sarnia Sting? Now you have to look it up right here live on the show, folks. Give me Nick Lardis. It's going to drive me crazy. He got traded from the Peterborough Petes to the Hamilton Bulldogs. Now he's going to be playing for the Brantford Bulldogs. Got you in Brantford this upcoming season. Hopefully a big year in the goal-scoring department for Lardis. Yuri Felkman is going to be playing for Langnau U20 once again in the top junior league over in Switzerland, it looks like. Alex Ferrand is going to be playing for the Sudbury Wolves, another guy who's bounced around in the OHL a little bit in his junior career. A lot of OHL prospects for the Blackhawks these next couple of years. Ferrand is a prospect I really did like them taking in the 4th round, though. How about this news coming out today about Marcel, baby, the best name in the 2023 NHL draft? He's actually not going back to the Gatineau Olympiques of the QMJHL. He's going to be playing for the Rockford Ice Hogs this fall, and he's actually able to do that because he turns 20 years old on October 31st, and if you're a drafted prospect out of these leagues, you have to be at least 20 years old in order to play for them. That's why for Kevin Korchinski this past year, it was NHL or WHL. Same thing for Connor Bedard. That's why he can't play with Rockford. Well, Marcel turns 20 years old on October 31st because he was an overager in this year's draft, so he's not going to be returning to Gatineau. He's going to be headed to Rockford, baby. Can't wait to see him in a Hogs uniform. Marcel, baby. Great attitude on him. Hopefully a bright future as well. And I do think it is the right decision, getting him acclimated to the professional level as soon as possible. Milton Oscarsson, 6'6" big boy, is going to be playing in the SHL once again. He put up 3 points there in 45 games this past season. And Jani Peltonen, the Blackhawks' last pick in this year's draft defenseman, is going to be playing with Karpat in Finland's Liga, the top professional league over in Finland, which is noteworthy for a 7th-round pick. Now getting into the 2022 NHL draft, Kevin Korchinski, the million-dollar question, is he going to be playing for the Blackhawks, or are they going to send him back to the Seattle Thunderbirds of the WHL? I personally don't see the rush. I think he still could work on the defensive side of things a little bit. And again, the Blackhawks are in this spot where they're really emphasizing patience. But at the same time, rumor has it they want to burn the first year of his ELC. And if he, has a jaw-dropping performance in training camp, he might not leave the coaching staff with any other choice. Keep an eye on Kevin Korchinski in these upcoming months. Frank Nazar is going to be playing his sophomore year with the University of Michigan. Sam Renzel, as I mentioned, is rooming with Oliver Moore at the University of Minnesota. Paul Ludwinski, the captain of the Kingston Frontenacs, had his season last year a little bit derailed by injury, unfortunately. He is going to be returning there as the captain once again. Ryan Green is going to be returning for his sophomore campaign with Boston University, was a third-line center for the majority of the season there. Probably going to get a top 6 role, if I had to guess, for the Terriers this upcoming season. Gavin Hayes, a massive season for him with the Flint Firebirds this past year. 40 goal scorer, 80 points in 66 games. Should have a top-line role for Flint once again, and probably will turn pro after that. Samuel Savoy, interestingly enough, is the only pick inside these top rounds that doesn't have, I think I know he's one of the higher end forward prospects that still has yet to sign his entry level contract with the Blackhawks. Did have a really solid past season with Gatineau, though, where he was nearly a point per game player. Obviously, though, is more so known for his physicality and the edge that he can play with. So I do expect him still to sign his ELC, but he will be back in Gatineau this year. Another third round pick in 2022, Aiden Thompson, will be returning to the University of Denver Pioneers for his second year there, was a point per game guy for them last season. Dominic James is also going to be returning for his junior season with the University of Minnesota Duluth. Could even be there as a senior when Adam Guyon becomes a freshman. Niels Juntorp is still in a very interesting spot. He played for the Dubuque Fighting Saints of the United States Hockey League this past season. Got off to a roaring start, but had a really disappointing conclusion of the season. Has a very powerful wrist shot. I don't really know if he can do anything else. Wasn't selected, I believe, in the CHL import draft, and still not sure at this point in time if he's returning to Dubuque or what's next for his future, but might have to get my Juntorp insider, my buddy Big Will, who's actually turning, I'm not going to say what age today because we're starting to creep up there, but quick birthday shout out to my buddy Big Will if he's tuned into this. Give me a little update on Niels Juntorp, if you will. And then the Blackhawks 2022 7th round pick, Riku Tohila from a small village in Finland, but he's 6'8" and does have some offensive ability. 12 goals, 6 assists, I believe, in 45 games this past year at the U20 level over in Finland, and could be playing in Finland's Liga this next season as well, the top professional league there, which would be a step in the right direction for him. Moving on to 2021, we have Nolan Allen, who should be making the jump to Rockford after being a WHL champion with the Seattle Thunderbirds. Same with Colton Dock. Both of those two were actually acquired by the Thunderbirds this past season. Tage Harding, third round pick in 2021, is returning to the University of Providence. Ethan Del Mastro from the Mississauga Steelheads was traded to the Sarnia Sting this past year as well. He should be making the professional leap to Rockford. Victor Haranbor, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. Looks like he's returning to the Vaxjo Lakers of the SHL. He was the captain of Team Sweden's World Juniors team this past season that found some success, and a really solid two-way player to keep an eye on, not to be forgotten, even though he's overseas. Same with this next guy, Ilya Safonov in the KHL. At 21 years old, he was named the captain at the midway point of this past season for Akbars and put up really respectable numbers there. Just turned 22 years old recently. If he ever comes over to North America, there could be a future here for this kid. I had him ranked inside my Blackhawks top 20 prospects. He's going to be back with Akbars for this upcoming season, though. And then 2 7th-round picks, Connor Kelly. He's also with Tage Harding at Providence. And Jalen Lipin joined the Rockford Ice Hogs at the end of the last season. He'll play his first full professional season this upcoming year. Then 2020, Lucas Reichel. Most of these guys are at the professional level now, though. Lucas Reichel should be an NHLer. Drew Comesso going to be in Rockford in a tandem with Jackson Stauber, so it seems. Landon Slaggert, interestingly enough, it returned to Notre Dame for his senior season. Very well could be named the team captain there soon. Wyatt Kaiser looks like he's going to be in the battle for making the opening night roster out of camp. Same with 5th-round pick Isaac Phillips. Michael Krudel is an interesting defenseman prospect because a couple of years ago, he actually spent a season and a half or so with the Rockford Ice Hogs, but recently has returned over to the Czech Republic and actually played most of his games last year in the 2nd division. It looks like he's back up to the top division for this upcoming season, but probably doesn't look too promising for Michael Krudel's future, at least within the Blackhawks organization, considering he made the jump back overseas. And then Louis Clavier, one of my favorite names in the organization, also a 6'7" giant defenseman. He played his first professional season with the Ice Hogs last year, is the only right-handed defenseman down in Rockford at this point in time. I believe they signed Josh Maniscalco, another righty, but they're going to have to give some depth there because it can't just be Clavier. He'll be in Rockford for, I believe, the full portion of this season as well, though. And then 2019, the last little bit of prospects here, Alex Vlasic, I firmly believe will be on the top pairing with Seth Jones to open up the season. Michael Tepley, I wonder if the Blackhawks are going to give him an NHL opportunity this season. I believe this is going to be his 3rd full year down in Rockford now. Antti Sorella, a 4th-round pick in 2019 that I think a lot of people have forgotten about. put up some strong, he's played 3 professional seasons already overseas and is now coming over to North America for the first time. Keep an eye on Antti Sorella in Rockford this year. And then 6th round pick in 2019, Dominic Bassi had a massive year with St. Cloud State. He's returning there and will probably be their number 1. Hopefully he'll have another big season. As for the rest of the prospects, I think I have everyone down here. We got Liam Gorman. He actually transferred from Princeton to UMass for his 5th-year senior season. We saw Jakob Galvis announce that he's going back overseas. I do believe the Blackhawks still hold his rights. He's going to be in the SHL for this upcoming season, though. Artur Kayumov, a former 2nd-round pick for the Blackhawks, is he ever going to come overseas? At this point, I doubt it. Just the gamble you take with Russians sometime. Hopefully that doesn't happen with Roman Kanserov. Ryder Rolston, a lot of ours there, is going to be in Rockford this upcoming year as well. A guest of the Locked On Blackhawks podcast. Super good guy. Cole Gutman will be in the NHL, I firmly believe, and looks like the Blackhawks are going to give him an opportunity to play center right out of the gate as well. And then Jackson Stauber, as I mentioned, should be part of the goaltender tandem with Drew Comesso for the Rockford IceHogs this season. I know that was a lot of talking, but that is where all of the Blackhawks prospects are going to be playing this upcoming season. Coming up in just a moment, don't go anywhere, Blackhawks fans. I know this is a long episode today, but I still have to get into my next Central Division preview, which features the Winnipeg Jets. All right, before I wrap things up, I do want to let you all know about the cool stuff I have planned for Locked On Blackhawks moving forward. I'm going to be having a crossover coming out soon with the folks over from Locked On Avalanche, and I plan on having crossovers with all of the Central Division hosts across the Locked On Podcast Network, and that will come after I complete my Central Division preview segment, which I'll be getting to the Winnipeg Jets here in just a second. I also plan on having a full video come out on Connor Bedard's projected rookie season. Lots of fun stuff planned ahead for the Locked On Blackhawks podcast. Obviously, I'm having the giveaway going on right now as well. Make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube so you don't miss out on any of that good stuff. All right, segment 3, time to get into my new segment here on the show this offseason, where I'm taking a deeper look at each of the other 7 clubs across the NHL's Central Division and taking a deeper look and just getting a deeper outlook at the direction these franchises are heading in moving forward. Last Friday, I started things off by getting into the St. Louis Blues. On Monday's show, I believe it was, I got into my next team, which was the Nashville Predators. Today, of course, I am going to be getting into the Winnipeg Jets, who kind of like the Nashville Predators. It feels like they've been in limbo forever now. And I talked about it going into the year, actually, when I did my projected standings for the Central Division. I said, after the Jets basically sat back and did literally nothing all last offseason, I just was so baffled by Kevin Cheveldayoff doing legit nothing. I said, I wouldn't be surprised if this team finishes 3rd, and I also wouldn't be surprised if this team finishes 7th. I have no sense of what the Winnipeg Jets are going to do because they're so random. It doesn't look like they're headed in any direction in particular. They're kind of just there in limbo. They feel very similar to the Nashville Predators to me. And I still kind of feel that same way about the Jets right now. And it feels like Kevin Cheveldayoff and this organization still has not really picked what direction they're going in. And they're just staying in that middle ground forever, where I don't think they're good enough to win the cup, but not bad enough to give a franchise-altering player in the draft. This past year, though, I will say I think they exceeded expectations for a great majority of fans after they finished 46, 33, and 3 for 95 points to finish 4th in the Central Division. Wound up getting bounced in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs, though, to the eventual Stanley Cup champion Vegas Golden Knights. But yeah, it still feels like the Jets are in this position where they're not really sure where they want to go. And I understand they're in a weird spot where they still have some young talent, but their older guys are going through. It almost feels like they need to realize they're in a St. Louis Blues type spot. And I just feel like anyone who can't be part of this franchise for 10 years moving forward isn't really valuable to them. So it's a very interesting position that Kevin Cheveldayoff is in at this point in time. And it almost just feels like they're making moves for the sake of making moves. They let go of Blake Wheeler after they strip his captaincy, which, was kind of an interesting debate in that locker room. Despite all that, they wind up being a very good team. They still go on and let go of Blake Wheeler here in the offseason. They trade Pierre-Luc Dubois, who vocally wanted out there as well, and I'm sure he'll probably want out of Los Angeles as well. I don't know really what's up with that guy. I still am not convinced he wants to play hockey. By the way, they got a really good return out of that Pierre-Luc Dubois trade, despite not having any leverage. But I'm really, really fascinated by the Winnipeg Jets' inability to look themselves in the mirror and just figure out who they are, because of not choosing, they're forever stuck in limbo. And while I do think they have a talented roster still, like I'll get into, I don't think it's good enough to get over that hump. One thing I will say is hockey is the most random sport. I mentioned this on the show yesterday. If you get hot at the right time, you can win. That's what's so great about playoff hockey. But I still don't think the Winnipeg Jets have that type of team. But getting into their offseason moves, it's been, a little bit laid off once again, except for the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade. We've seen them sign Laurent Brossoit to bring him back as Hellebuck's backup once again. They also signed Blackhawks legend Colin Delia to a minor league deal. Dylan Sandberg returned as a defenseman, and they're still waiting on RFA deals to get worked out with Kupari, who they acquired from Los Angeles, and Logan Stanley on the back end as well. But they did get a really good return for Pierre-Luc Dubois. As I mentioned, Alex Iafallo, Gabe Vilardi, and Rasmus Kupari straight up for Pierre-Luc Dubois. Even though everyone and their mother knew he wanted out of Winnipeg, they still get that type of return. Pretty solid. They also acquired Vladislav Nemesnikov at the deadline from the San Jose Sharks and signed him to a 2-year extension this offseason. And Nino Niederreiter, who they acquired from the Nashville Predators, also has 1 year left on their current deal. As far as their prospect pool goes, this is why I think it would be a little bit of an easier pick or an easier decision for the Winnipeg Jets to make here. I think they should just go in a full-scale rebuild because they have a little bit of talent here. They had a good first-round pick this past year in Colby Barlow, which actually led to the Blackhawks taking Oliver Moore at number 19. But they also have Chaz Lucius, who's a decent prospect, Brad Lambert, who was an absolute monster for the Seattle Thunderbirds throughout their WHL playoff run. They have some really skilled forwards, and I think if they traded a couple guys, they might be able to add some more first-round selections. And if you're not a middling team, you could get a high selection of your own. I think that would make sense for the Winnipeg Jets. But at the same time, they do still have a decently talented roster for Rick Bowness to work with this upcoming season. I forgot to mention Cole Perfetti into that prospect pool mix as well. I know he's kind of already stepped onto the scene, but they have him, Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele, Nikolai Ehlers, Niederreiter, as I referenced, Nemestikov signed back as well. Gabe Vilardi has joined the mix. They still have Adam Lowry, Mason Appleton. They have a pretty solid forward group to go along with kind of a big four, I think, on defense of Josh Morrissey, Neil Pionk, Nate Schmidt, and Brendan Dillon. Dylan DeMello also isn't a terrible defenseman as well. And they have Connor Hellebuck in net. Look, I think like this is a Winnipeg Jets team that I feel the same way as I did going into last year that I feel right now. I still think this is a roster that, playing at its best, could be the third or fourth best team in the Central Division. But they've kind of been that for 10 years now, it feels like, and it's gotten them really nowhere. And I just it feels like the Nashville Predators, who I broke down yesterday, have finally gotten over that hump and are finally chose a side here. It feels like the Winnipeg Jets have just not been able to do that. I do give Kevin Cheveldayoff credit because for keeping the dream alive. I mean, the Winnipeg Jets for sure exceeded expectations last year. I don't know if they're going to get away with it once again this season. So I have that same mentality. I do imagine, though, that they're probably due for a little bit of a resurgence and will finish in the bottom half of the division if I had to guess. But there's still enough talent, I think, to squeak by for, a wild card spot or one of the last spots in the Central Division. At the end of the day, that shouldn't be what you're shooting for, though. And that's why I think the Winnipeg Jets are in such a fascinating spot right now. There's still talent there, and they still have some talent coming up, but it feels like it's all middle of the pack, and that's usually not good enough to get the job done in the NHL. All right, folks, I think that is going to take care of Wednesday, July 19th episode of Locked On Blackhawks. As always, thank you all again for tuning into the show. And be sure to go and follow Locked On Blackhawks for free right now, wherever you may be listening to your podcast, and to go follow Locked On Blackhawks subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube, and you can get the latest episode as soon as it comes out each and every day. As always, I'm your host, Jack Bushman. Find me out on Twitter at JackBushman2, or you could also go and check out my Strictly Blackhawks account at Talkin' Hockey for all the latest Blackhawks news and updates. So until tomorrow's episode, that's going to do it here for the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.